Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod with Jonathan Duarte. He's founder and CEO at GoHire.com. Was telling me some crazy hiring stories of Huber and his reverse engineering skill. He had like 25 million page indexed on Google decades ago. So that's fascinating to me. We're going to have a very cool pod today. This pod is brought to you by podware.com. If you want to start a monetizable podcast the scalable way, the unconventional way, you can go to podware.com. John, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself, your history, and go hire.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Charles, and everyone. My name is Jonathan Duarte. I started one of the first job boards back in 1996, back when it was dial-up days, and in that process, built what we call job distribution. We used to take jobs from people by building that. We built like a Windows 3.1 software we'd send in the mail to recruiters, and they would upload it. And they'd send us their files of jobs every night because they didn't even have internet access. And so over the time, built that job board up to Go Jobs, and then built, as we were talking about in the green room, in 2007, I had 12.5 million pages indexed in Google for job search. And so basically just ran a click arbitrage business for many years, and then sold off that traffic to Ronnie and Paul, the two founders of Indeed. Took a couple of months off, moved to Phuket, Thailand with my wife and my two kids, and lived on the beach for a while. And all I had to do was keep the servers up. Not a bad life back in 2010 after the economy had crashed out. And then started working on a background screening company called GoHire. And one of our clients at the time was Uber. And Uber hired, and this is still, it just fascinates me that most people haven't, thought about this. But back in that time, in 2016, remember, Uber was just popping up at different cities, week after week. It'd be like, they're in Orlando, they're in Las Vegas, they're in here. And you're like, no one ever thought, how did they recruit all those drivers? They hired 600,000 drivers in 6 months, all over text messaging. It's the largest private hiring event I've heard in the US ever. And this goes back even to World War II. We've never seen those kind of numbers ever hired in that short a time. So I was doing the background checks, part of the APIs and that process, building those, and I saw the volume one day, and I'm like, what is going on? Are they running a test? And they're like, no, this is it. And I'm like, what? So I did what any good entrepreneur would do, is I signed up as an Uber driver and reverse engineered the platform and started rebuilding that, left GoHire and started building that, and started building GoHire, a different company.
Why are you built that way? I'm the same, but I'm weird. Not a lot of people are like that, reverse engineer stuff and get excited by, like these kinds of numbers and yeah, being inspired by crazy men like Travis. Why are you that way?
I I don't know. I think it's like it's a drive to do better. And I don't know, maybe it's an internal thing. I think, like, I remember when I was in like second grade, like they had like, I don't know if it's like an IQ test or something like that. And every one of my friends who were smart got a little note that they had to take home from their teachers. Turns out my mom and my teacher were good friends, but turns out those kids got to go into a special advanced class. So I thought there was something wrong with me. Turns out my mom already knew I was going to the class. So I was telling myself I had to be smart. So I think instinctively I've always just tried to find ways to do this stuff. And like the sales leads and the AI and the sales GPT stuff right now is just fascinating as a way to get to market for our product. And that's what we're doing now. So I'm even fascinated to hear, more about that. We'll learn, offline. I'm sure it's your favorite thing to talk about these days too.
Yeah, well, I studied Travis extensively in his war room, and yeah, God, was he impressive, that guy. I'm not sure about his cloud kitchen stuff. How's it going right now? A bunch of people hate him for whatever crab in the bucket reason. Um,
Yeah.
but 600,000 jobs in 6 months, and you were probably one of the only guy to notice that, to tried to reverse engineer, tried to put a funnel on recruiting via SMS.
Yep.
What startup did that lead to? And tell us about, yeah, like the exit that you also had with that one.
Yeah. So the company I was working at the time was called GoHire. There it was a straight employment background screening company. So they would do, typical employee screening. We got part of the deal for Uber, and that's when I saw the traction going through. But when I saw what they were doing, like the number of people, I'm like, this is bigger than a background screening company. This is a global effort to change how we recruit, because anyone who's an hourly person, which is 60% of the US working population and about probably 80% of the global population, works off a cell phone. They don't have a laptop to apply for a job. They don't have a resume. So those people have been ostracized out of recruiting because they just can't. The funnels that were built for recruiting were built for knowledge workers. So that's when I left and started building GoHire, and I've been building it totally self-funded myself over the last 6 years. Been hiring guys while I contracted and built some technology for artificial intelligence, conversational AI for Kaiser Permanente and for Wells Fargo. And then I just went full time this last year to start really building it, and then building the platform out into the mid market.
So no exit on that one yet, maybe an exit plan. Let's
Yep.
just go back in time though. You mentioned click arbitrage, and that's fascinating to my brain. Do you think we can still do something similar nowadays?
Yeah, I think all the actually every job board is a click arbitrage machine. That's all it is right now. Because what happens, and this is the technology I built back in '99, was we would take jobs from one job board and I would list them on my website. And the technology is still the exact same. They send over an FTP file. It's not even smart APIs and stuff. They would upload a job, might get a contract with a company to take their jobs and to post them onto their website. But how they drive traffic to those jobs is they post those jobs to other sites, and they buy the clicks and send them back to the company. So it's really just Indeed does the same thing. Indeed's the biggest player in this whole thing. Job boards are basically a click arbitrage engine, and that's why they can only scale to a certain extent, because it's at some point you have to own the traffic yourself.
You had an exit with that one. You lived on a beach for a while. Why did you decided to step out of that beach and go out in the cold business world in San Francisco?
Um, well, it was actually an interesting time. So in 2008, like every entrepreneur, like I I saw the writing on the wall. What was going to happen? So in Q4, 7 days before Christmas, on my 40th birthday, I laid everyone off in my company and I made it virtual, because we were seeing companies to stop their advertising, their job postings, and that's the first sign we're going into a recession. So we knew that early, or I knew it because I'd already seen it. I've been through nearly 2 bankruptcies in the past in the same market. So I saw it, and I'm like, we can't even pay payroll. We gotta dive out. So it took me a year and a half to get the company to the point where I could leave the US, and then just went virtual. I think I'm still the only person I know that ever um, actually implemented the 4-hour work week. There may be more out there, but I've never met anyone. And all I had to do was keep the servers up, and then we moved back because the economy kept getting worse and worse. My revenue kept going down, so we came back and moved to San Francisco.
But San Francisco is hella pricey.
Yeah, but at the same time, like if my wife had a job, came back, got a job, and I was actually just training for Ironman triathlons. While I was basically a stay-at-home dad, um, and then trained for triathlons, and then finally decided, okay, in 2014, I went back to work, found another
What
project.
Ironmans did you do?
Did Ironman Canada twice and Ironman, excuse me, Cosm L once.
Nice, man. I did Cosm L, and
Yeah.
the Canada one, that one is in BC, right?
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, it must be quite beautiful. And I always tell myself, like, why do Ironmans again if I already did them? But my last one in Mont Tremblant, which I think was the next ones after that one was canceled, that one I sort of enjoyed, the nature and being on the
Yep.
bike and so forth. You get to enjoy these painful events, ironically, after some time. What lessons
Yeah.
did you get from your adventure in the Ironman world?
I think, people talk about their superpowers. I think I have two. One is persistence, which Iron Man is all about that. And the other one is a keen sense of the ability to listen and then tie those things out. So I've been in the same industry for now, I think almost 28 years, HR and recruiting technology. Built three companies in it. I've heard every different, phase of what's going on, been through three kind of technical changes, and um, the ability to listen to customers when you're doing product market fit and you're trying to figure out customer research. It is probably the greatest skill you can have as a CEO, because it will also, when you're scaling the business, you're interviewing, just listening, like shutting up the stuff between your ears and just asking questions and letting them think and say stuff, and not trying to get to the next question to ask. That's probably the hardest thing for anyone to do.
Hallelujah. The first one I have, and I think I acquired that. I don't think it comes innate, that skill. So that's my first question to you. Was it innate, the ability to endure and to continue and to pursue? And the second one, was it also innate in you, or did you acquire that one? Because I'm still very much on my way there, that Jeff Bezos skill.
Yeah, I think the first one, I came from a family of nine kids. I was the second, the youngest, and my dad was a general manager of Muni, the public transportation, and he put seven kids through college. We didn't have a lot of money, but we weren't poor. But if I had a paper route early on. I've always worked. I think I've counted up. I've only worked for anyone for 5 years in my entire life. So I'm 55. So my whole career has been, you know, you know, go out and do it and do the hard work, and you'll get the rewards. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But I'm really excited about recently a lot of things I've learned from Alex Hermosi. You've probably heard his name. Everyone has now, but just his whole thing is just go to work and do the stuff you need to do. You already know what you need to do. Just do it. Like, be good at that and not try to do 15 things. Right.
The
Uh,
opposite of 4 hour work week. But yeah, and also
exactly.
and okay, the second skill, I mean,
The listening.
listening. I have an ability to focus when I get all these ideas, and I feel that I need to add my point of view. That's certainly not a good thing in a product market fit perspective. I also have my values, right? That I don't try to move too much. So if the customer tells me that they want porn and booze, I won't give it to them, I'm not implying that you do, but how did you develop that skill? Because indeed, in the product market fit realm, listening to the customer and giving them what they want is the de facto number one skill.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I was a history major in college at UCLA, and I studied a lot of Taylorism, which is just scientific management. We actually would all just call it workflow process automation. Um, and then when I'm listening, and kind of how I listened to people in the past, isn't necessarily like I'm listening to them, and then a lot of this time I'm recording everything too, so I can go back to it. But I listen enough to hear, just like Henry Ford said, if I listened to people, all they wanted was a faster horse, right? Instead of a car. But you have to think, this person says this thing, this person says this thing. You have to tie them out. And I think you're right in the sense of you don't give everyone what they want because that's not what the market wants. The market, you have to get a specific ICP who has the same exact concerns. And if you don't do that, and I've failed at it several times because everyone does, but you have to be disciplined to get 1,000 customers that have the exact same concern or whatever that number it is. So you're not, I think the best way a mentor said to me is you're not getting off the phone, taking notes, trying to do something different on every single phone call. You just want to be able to say, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. Once you've done it enough and you can tell them why, yes, hey, in the future I might be able to do that, but I can solve this problem, which I think is the biggest problem you have now. And then we can push off that other problem until my company is successful. And that way I can make you successful. Because if I'm doing your work, I'm just a custom programmer.
Feel AIs would be so much better than us humans. I mean, some of us, like you and I, we have intuition because we have skill. We've spoken to so many people that we just know in their gut. But AI would sort of scan their website, LinkedIn, their podcast, and everything, and would say, "Oh, this feature is the most likely to get them lit up." And then you'd send a cold email or have a call with them. My mortal advice on the topic. Like I said, it's not one of my top skill and I have much to learn from you, but one quick low hanging fruit would be like start relationships in your personal life. Have a spouse. Okay. It's like being the perfect boyfriend, right? It's not, she tells you something, right? But it's not necessarily that. You need to dig deeper and think and filter and then offer the solution. And then it's the same with kids, or right now I have 4 dogs. Um, you need to learn to observe them, their reactions, and understand what they really want, you know? Sometimes my
Mhm.
dogs are fucking around. Why they're fucking around? Because they want to go out and take a pee or eat.
Yeah.
Or they're just tired, you know? Um, so yeah, forge relationships, and same applies with friends, and try to be the ideal friend or spouse. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's true. It's that listening. Um, I think another way I've learned the skill outside of business has been talking to people, just it's just relationships. I have a way of being just a third party and completely objective and not getting bought into a conversation. So especially like, and this is what a good mental health therapist would do as well, which would they'd ask questions, but they don't say, oh yes, let me ask you more, or I totally agree. They don't say anything like that. They're not there to agree or disagree. They're there to listen and probe and see if they can get you to the point that you can share maybe where your hurt is or where your pain is. And guess what? That's called sales. Same thing.
Fully agree. Biochemistry is a keyword that comes to my mind in conversations. People nowadays, first, they don't really know how to talk, you know, with TikTok and all of that. We've become,
Yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
what we've become. I don't even have a word for it. Slaves. In my opinion, is just to sit down, yeah, listen objectively, show up some EQ touches, you know, and truly connect. You know, it's not just showing corporate type of EQ. You know, it's really
Mhm.
connecting from the heart and trying to also slow down the situation. You know, because cortisol naturally comes to lots of humans nowadays. They just talk and think too quick. You know, and sometimes offer them a different perspective, not being scared to share a different perspective with them and bring them on new paths. But yeah, the objectivity I very much enjoy. Now, I have another question for you related to mindset. You said to bankruptcy. How did you deal with these? And when you think about them, does it bring like micro PTSD? Does it bring trauma? Does it bring cortisol in your blood? Or do you feel at peace with them and you're like, yeah, that I needed to have that in my life and I learned tons and they were actually post-growth events?
Yeah, I'm totally at peace with them now. And I never would have talked about them before because I was embarrassed. But the reality is until you've digested it and realized, hey, everyone makes mistakes. Um, but it's that other side of if I had a third skill, it would be the ability to look around corners. And what I mean by that from a startup's point of view is you can see where the wave is coming or what the market is doing. And that only comes from experience. There's no way to predict that. But if you hear your customers saying, hey, I've got this issue and this other one, I've got this other one, and you talk to enough people, you can see that coming around. So if you internalize and you learn from those lessons, and I think, again, this was an Alex Hermosi thing that he said like a month ago. I heard, I'm like, oh my God, this is just like beating myself in the head. He said, if you're at an event or you're in like a conference or you're spending time reading a book, if you don't take something away from that and execute it, you never learned. So you've got to take time back to learn and digest that stuff, because it will come back. If someone said, if you haven't learned finance, you're going to keep screwing up on finance until you learn finance. And maybe that simply takes, like I've done, hired a fractional CFO to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing so I'm not making the same mistakes.
Right. This podcast is giving me ideas or habit ideas or market research insights. And then I have my cold email system to send out stuff, book meetings, and test out these ideas out there in the market. So, yeah, it's important to have theory, and probably 10% of your energy should be spent on theory, but most importantly, like putting it to work, right? Because this life is quite short, and you know that. I mean, you've been on this planet Earth for 55 years, and it probably has passed like 5 minutes, especially when you're having fun. And I think it's our duty as humans to evolve as quick as possible and to try to reach our best version. So, what would be your top goals for this year?
I'm actually going to do something completely different that I've never done before. I'm only making one business goal for the quarter, and I'm only doing it on a quarter basis. And I have one personal goal, but that's actually going to be more of a lifestyle, because I'm going to get back in Ironman. So I've got to drop weight. And you want to know how I'm doing it? Is walking, simply walking, because you have a lower heart rate, so you can just burn fat. And I'm just on it, intermittent fasting, so I can just get down my weight. Because as we were talking about Ironman, to go on that, when I did my last Ironman, I was 188. That's what I weighed. And if I did the math on it, I would have qualified for Kona if I was 20 pounds lighter, just from aerodynamics and weight. So I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it at 165. And obviously I'm older, so I'll be in an older class. So hopefully some of the older guys can't keep up. So that's one, I think. And then the business goal is do a 500,000 this quarter. And by focusing on a singular goal, there's all the things you have to do in it, but I'm working on a growth mindset. And the other part of that growth mindset, that Andrew Huberman has been talking about as well, is don't congratulate yourself or others on the label, on the success, or on the final goal. It's the encouragement on the activity, the verbs. If you do something, like I used to tell myself I'm terrible at sales, and I still do. I know that's like my embedded story. So what I have to do is, because I'm a founder, I like to do a whole bunch of stuff, right? And find new things. So what I do is I congratulate myself for waking up and making the 20 sales calls. I'm like, that's my day. Okay. And then I can go screw around, do my other stuff that I want to do, or, dive into customer issues or something like that. But that's my goal. It was 500,000 this quarter. Me doing founder-led sales, and then as we go out and I implement some of the AI stuff, I'll be able to bring on SDRs and things as well.
Where can people find out more about you, John?
I'm actually really easy to find on LinkedIn. My profile is the best LinkedIn profile. So my URL is linkedin.com/in/the best LinkedIn profile.